everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Adoptions from the Heart TV. I'm your host, Amanda Aliberti. Today we are going to be sitting down with an amazing family, Lara and Jeff, who have adopted 3 times through our agency. So welcome to Lara and Jeff.
Thank you. Good to see you again.
You too. So it's not every day that we have the opportunity to speak to a family who has done this not once, not twice, but 3 times. So if we could maybe just start with a brief introduction of all of your kids, when they came to be in your family, and a little bit of kind of what life is like for you today.
So we kind of made the decision we wanted to go the route of adoption after I came back from my last deployment in Afghanistan and started filling out all the paperwork and everything. And so our first son, Harrison, was born in 2011. And then we had to wait a year before, because we always knew we wanted more than one child. So we had to wait a year to start the paperwork again. And so after that year, we got the paperwork in place, which took a few months. And then almost immediately, we get notified that we've been selected again for a second. So our boys are only 15 months apart, which was just crazy. We had no idea that it was going to be so close back to back. We thought we'd have a longer wait since we already had one child. And then it was a long wait because we decided we wanted a 3rd child. And so we had to wait just about 5 years.
3 years after Leo, our second, was born, we decided to do the paperwork to adopt again. And that wait was 2 years. And then then Grace came to us in 2018.
Wonderful. So back in 2011 is kind of when you initially started thinking about building your family through adoption, and you came to the agency.
Right.
At that point, what was your perspective on open adoption? What were you expecting out of Openness?
Probably what everyone else expects, which is like the Lifetime movies, of bad situations and birth parents coming back and trying to get the kid and that kind of thing. But it's like anything, when you don't know, then it's kind of, the unknown is scary. I held off on the adoption route for a long time because it scared me. And my preconceived notion was that if a birth parent is involved in a relationship, then it will make me feel less of a parent. So that's honestly how I went in with it. What about you?
And I tell you, when we first started looking at adoption, I had never even heard of open adoption. So I always thought that everything was closed. So I was adopted by my stepfather, and I didn't have any involvement or any contact with my birth father for many, many years. So when I learned about open adoption, I was like, wouldn't that be nice? Wouldn't it be nice to have some kind of contact, some kind of back and forth, so that it's not just, completely cut off? But I was like, Laura, I still had a lot of questions, a lot of apprehension about what the level of involvement is,
what it looks like,
and how that was going to work out for us.
Sure. Talk to us a little bit about what the open adoption plans look like for all 3 of your children, and when that perspective started changing for you.
So when we started, we decided, I think it's a requirement. I don't know, that you're open to 1 visit a year, I think. And we decided that was what we were comfortable with. If it had to be something, that's, would be okay. And when we were picked, and Harrison's birth mother wanted to meet us before he was born. And so once we sat down and talked to her, I will just say, once I saw her, I just bolted and ran and hugged her. We were in the mall. Our meeting place is the food court at the mall. And I ran right to her, and instantly I just fell in love with her, and I felt a connection, and she was so open with us and gracious, and letting us decide everything that was going to happen in the hospital. And it was at that point, right then, as soon as I met her, I felt like I want this person in our life. So, but she had told us that she didn't want any communication or visits for the first 4 to 5 years, I think she said. Yeah. So, that's what we thought it was going to be. However, I like to, that changed, but I don't want to say I'm an overachiever, but I send more than the required communication. And so I just sent, once a month for the first year of his life. And then I do about 6 times a year with letters and pictures. And we heard from her when he was about 18 months old and saying that she wanted to meet us at the picnic in Pennsylvania. And so Leo was a newborn. And so we met her there. That was our first visit with her. And then we didn't really hear anything for a couple years. But, I just kept sending everything like I usually do. That's where we were with his birth mother. Then when Leo was born, they wanted, I think they said 2 visits a year.
Yeah,
Isn't right?
They want 2 visits a year.
And we were fine with that. And just from that initial meeting with them, I thought that it was going to be the opposite. We were going to have several visits with them all the time and hardly any with Harrison's. And that ended up being the opposite. So we've only had 1 visit with Leo's birth parents, and that's when we went back to Delaware to finalize the adoption. He was 8 months old. And we have had a visit planned, but that they changed their mind. They didn't want to do it. And then we keep asking for when they're ready, that we'd love another visit.
We always put out there if we're traveling or anything, hey, we're going to be coming up that way, because there are trips where we head up that direction, but there hasn't been any real response for Leo's. And then Grace was
complete opposite of everything.
Because so with Grace, the first time we ever met her birth parents, they were both very open,
very open with us.
Just very open, embracing of us. It was almost like we embodied all of their hopes and dreams for Grace, and so it's been, hey, can we get your cell phone number? Can we text you?
We're totally open.
It's a complete open relationship with Grace's birth parents.
And since the very beginning.
Yeah.
And I will say, they told us one of the reasons why they picked us. So Harrison was 6 and Leo was 5 when Grace was born. And they said one of the reasons they picked us was because of the boys. And also because they're adopted, and so all the kids would be the same. There were no boundaries with them at all. And so that has been a very, very open relationship.
Going back to Harrison, his has become much more open over the last few years that, now we're FaceTiming with her, we're texting pictures to her and things. And we're doing a lot more visits with Harrison's birth mother now than from the beginning. So it changes over time. It's not what we, it's not the way it started. It's certainly not going to be the way it's going to end.
Right.
So it was 2011, 2013, and 2018.
Correct.
Yeah.
So it is interesting when you think about that, how open adoption has changed over the years. It sounds like Grace, your youngest, you really do have what we call kind of an open adoption. You have direct contact with them. That's an interesting piece to see how open adoption has transformed over the years.
I feel like the relationships that we have with their birth parents are small, medium, and large, kind of. And, and like Jeff said, it's fluid. We acknowledge them as our family, and it's a family relationship, and sometimes it's better than others.
Sure. So sometimes when families come back into our program and want to build their family a second or a third time, one of the challenges they face is how are we going to deal with this if the open adoption relationships are different, right? If my eldest does not have any sort of connection or relationship to their biological parents, and now this second or third child does, how will we navigate that as parents? What advice would you give?
Yeah, and we do deal with that somewhat with Leo, not having any communication. So we try to work with him to, put your feelings on paper. Let's write a letter to her. We can do that anytime. We can send that letter to her and see how she responds to that. And so it's more one-sided, I think, that he's asking a lot of questions. So we're putting that information out there, and he's more hopeful that, there's going to be that point in time where she will be more responsive. But I can see in him, especially when the other kids are FaceTiming or other things, he certainly has that want to have more of a relationship there. And I think over time that will come through. And we have had
So
some
we
recent
did
messaging
have,
just
yes.
recently from his birth mother.
It was in November, I think. It was November. And I think, so in September, I always send like a summer recap, of everything we did during the summer. And I put my phone number in there, if they ever want to reach out. And I think, pretty sure it was November, maybe the end of October, that I got a text from her. And it was pictures. It was a picture of her, updated picture of her, of the birth father, and of her two other children, which are Leo's half siblings. So it was like 30 minutes before Leo got home from school. And as soon as he got home from school, I'm like, Leo. And so I showed him, and I had him record a message, a little video. And he said, thank you so much for the pictures. I love them. And can we FaceTime? So I sent that to her, and she replied back. She said, yeah, let's do it this weekend. And there was a little bit of back and forth with what Leo's doing and what because he's very athletic, and what her other kids are sports they're in. And then I texted her and said, by the way, these are the questions that Leo wants to ask you when we FaceTime, because I didn't want her to feel nervous about it or get caught off guard. And it was like, do you like to watch WWE? Oh, do you still live in Delaware? Are you married to the birth father? And are we related to Joe Biden? That's what he wanted to know, because Joe Biden's from Delaware. So those were his big questions. And then after that, we never heard back. And it was Sunday night, and I texted her and I said, if you still want to FaceTime, we can. And we haven't heard anything since. So
I have to say, because I've personally seen the beautiful correspondence that you guys have sent over the years. I mean, it's been almost 10 years. Talk to me about the feelings of, how do you stay so consistent with that connection and with that hope for what you want for your kiddos? Because I think that sometimes families will struggle with the idea of inconsistent openness.
Yes.
And if I have not had the same formality of openness over the years, and all of a sudden a birth parent comes back in and then leaves again, some families turn to anger. Talk to me a little bit about that, of where you guys stand, because you're on the total other side of it.
So I treat all the birth families the same. So right now I'm getting ready to send out Easter cards. And so I just printed out 193 pictures because not only do I need to send out the Easter, but since Leo just had his birthday, I'm sending out the annual birthday too. At one time, I will mail out his birthday letter to you, all of the Easter cards for all the birth parents and grandparents, and my sister and his brother. So, I mean, I just treat it like all my family. I do it all at the same time. I always have the boys. Grace really isn't old enough yet. I say, these are the pictures I'm sending to your birth families. Look through them. If you want to take any out, you can. And then I say, I want you to write something to them, and it could just be love Harrison, love Leo, or it could be, I think the last time Leo, for the Valentine's, I think Leo wrote, I want to see you. And as a matter of fact, it was in the Valentine's card, and Harrison said, I want a visit to his birth mother. And she sent me a text to thank me for the Valentine's card and the picture. And she said, I want a visit too. It's been too long. And so then that's how we were able to plan the visit we are going to have in May. I try to treat them all the same in our communication.
For me, I think everything that we do is, for me, like I'm fulfilling a promise to them. I promised that we were going to give these kids these amazing adventures in this amazing life. And Lara documents that. She maintains a blog that all of the birth parents can look at. So, and I think that's part of it, is they've watched the kids grow up through this blog, not waiting for the next letter, because they could just get on the blog and anytime go see what's going on with them. So I think there is that consistency between the communications we send out, regardless of how much we get back, that we are always going to put out the same level of effort for all of them, regardless, of what we get back from them.
Yeah. And also Grace's birth parents, since the boys were old enough to know them, to meet them in the hospital, and several times when we were in Connecticut for 20 days, they feel like they're not, this is Grace's birth parents, and we try not to say just, this is only Harrison's family, this is only Leo's, this is only Grace, this is family, period.
They're just all extended family to us.
Right. And so when we FaceTime with anybody,
but we'll ask the kids if they also want to say hi
to whoever it is, regardless if it's their blood relative or not. And Grace's birth parents, they treat the boys like they're theirs too. And when they send gifts for her, they send gifts for them, which just...
Again, one of the things I find so powerful about you guys and so inspiring is your commitment, regardless of what the response is. No matter what happens, whether you go for years without hearing from the birth parents to any of your children, you continue to maintain that consistency of opening your hearts, sending those updates. And also your kids are growing up knowing that you're consistent with that, and they participate in those correspondence update packages that you put through. You mentioned that earlier, Jeff, about specifically Leo, in like trying to channel maybe some disappointment that he may have by having him participate in the drawing or the writing that you send to his birth parents. Talk to me a little bit more about that, about what that does for your family.
Well, I think that it's giving him an outlet to be able to express his feelings in a way that's constructive, so that he doesn't lash out against brother or sister because he perceives them getting something that he's not getting. And because the other birth parents also include Leo in their visits and their correspondence and everything, it really makes it less of a hardship for him. I could tell you when he did get the pictures from his birth mom, they went up on the wall. I mean, they got blown up. They got pictures on his wall because his older brother Harrison had pictures of his birth mother and things on his wall. So immediately, as soon as he has it, he's like, I want that,
I asked him, so he told me he wanted to put them up, and I said, would you like me to make a collage, a big collage? And so he chose the pictures he wanted. And so it's kind of a poster right next to his WWE wrestlers. But they're both by his bed. And so they all three have the pictures that they wanted up in their room of their birth families. And I let them do that however they want to do it, take them down, change them, whatever. But I think going back to just being consistent on reaching out, I think what we're trying to do is model for the kids that you don't give up.
One thing I will say is each of the kids has their own little treasure box of all the pictures, correspondence, anything that we have.
Hospital stuff.
Hospital things, everything that we have from their adoption. And there's been times where they get a little sentimental. And so we pull down their treasure box and we go through all of it with them. And, we read all the letters with them and just help them to express their feelings again. And I think that kind of helps them to move forward and not keep looking back.
Sure. Guys, there's so many different layers to open adoption. It's not as simple as people think it is. There's so many variables and things that happen over time that may change the course of your relationship with open adoption. I know for you, Lara, you started off by saying that initially you did have some fears, some unknowns, some caution of what open adoption would look like. Fast forward over 10 years, what advice would you give to those folks who are in the same shoes you were once in? Of what will this look like? Do I really want to do this? What would you say to them? You
don't know what it's going to look like. You have no idea. And you're not going to know till you're in it. And it's going to change over and over and over. But we just kept hoping for it to be beautiful. And I think it is right now. The only caution I have is that as long as it's healthy, it will remain as open as we can have it with all of them. And, that's just the precaution we have to have as parents. But, we tell our kids when Leo says, why didn't we hear back? Did she ever text you anymore? I say, you know what? We don't know what's going on in her life. We don't know what's going on in any of their lives. she could be on vacation, she could have a job on the other side of the world. We just don't know. So until we hear from them what's going on, we can't really imagine, we can't speculate. We can't say, well, she's too busy or she doesn't want me or whatever, because we just don't know. Sure. And until we do know, we just keep going. We just keep trying.
Sure. Well, and again, I think, we're in 2022. I think life is very different today with open adoption than it was even back in 2011 when you probably took your educational class. Again, I don't think nowadays it's about proving the benefits of open adoption. I think our struggle is folks who have inconsistent openness, the ones who maybe are placed with a child, initially have some contact with birth parent, and then years go by where there's nothing. And then we get that call when the child is 7, 8, 9 years old, and the birth parent is ready now for that contact. And the family is struggling with that, of maybe they're angry or they're frustrated that they didn't have that over the years. So they're a little more cautious about having that contact. What can you say to those folks?
For me, I would say our kids can never have too many people to love them. So whatever that relationship is, we try to build it upon the love that we know they had, because they want them to have a better life. So there was a lot of love in that birth mother that placed them with us in the first place. So we try to build the relationships upon that. And as we continue forward, that's probably the consistency that we're trying to build within the kids. And, in our relationships with each of the different families, we want to be able to share the love that we have for these kids. And for me, that was, one of my fears going into adoption in the first place, was I was afraid that I wouldn't have the same level of love that I might have for a biological child. And I'll tell you, all those fears went away when I held that baby in my arms for the first time. I'm like, that's just not the case. And so I kind of apply that to the same with each of the birth parents is, I cannot love them any more or any less, because they placed this baby with me and with us and with our family, and they gave us this hope and they gave us this opportunity. And so whatever it is, we're going to pay it back in every way we can with these kids and give them this amazing life that we think that that's what they wanted, right? And so, hopefully over time, they'll have opportunities to continue to grow those relationships with the birth parents. And we're just there to help facilitate that and to help them to constantly reiterate to them how much they were loved to be put into our home.
And I think we hold on to the visits that we have had. And so like Leo, he doesn't have any memories of his birth parents, because he was 8 months old when he saw them last. And I say, yeah, Leo, but you did. Here are the pictures. Look at them holding you. Look at this, And Leo's an artist. He loves to draw. And so he has seen in the pictures that his birth parents have tattoos. And I said, you need to draw a new tattoo for him and send it to him and say, this is the tattoo you need to get.
That's great.
But it is what it is. And I think all we can do is talk about their birth parents in a positive light, no matter what, because that's where our kids come from.
They're all uniquely connected to the state they came from,
and
to the families they came from.
Yeah, and they all three have Italian heritage, and so we try to really celebrate that. And Leo has curly hair. We know that he got that from his birth mother, and so we try to always say, you got this from your birth mother or whatever. And we just try to normalize it as much as possible and not make a big deal about whose birth parents are whose.
Sure. Well, I just wanted to kind of end, if there's any other thoughts you guys have, I wanted you to have a moment to share anything that might be weighing on your heart that you'd like our community to know about your experience, or just open adoption, anything in general.
I would like to, if I can get this out without crying too much. Last year, this is why there's open adoption, okay? Last year, I got a text from Grace's birth mother that said, can I call you? And I replied back and I was like, sure. And she told me that she had breast cancer and has given me every single update on her health, so that Grace has that. And so we have that. And I just can't tell you, regardless of that, I was already pro open adoption, but that is the reason And I just can't be more grateful that we have that information.
Absolutely.
And she's doing okay. She's good. She's doing good. But I wasn't anticipating the feelings that I would have about possibly not having her in our lives anymore. And so.
How about for you, Jeff?
You know, for me, this has been an amazing adventure. I feel like this adventure we're on with our family is, you know, where I need to be and where we need to be. And there is just so many positive benefits to the open adoption, because it's not just birth mothers anymore. It's birth grandparents, it's aunts and uncles. There's, you know, we get texts directly from moms, you know, grandmas.
The grandparents,
you know, just checking in or sending a gift or something. And it really has just opened up what this picture has become, because there's so many more people that love them than they had originally thought. And as time goes on, they get to start exploring more and more of those other relationships. And I'm just so glad for that, because I'd hate to deny them those opportunities to have any of those relationships with their biological side of our family. And in time, I know that those will continue to grow as we're more open, as they're more open. And, you know, my hope is that, you know, one day the kids will be able to just pick up the phone and have a conversation if they're feeling down that day. And they'll always know that those birth moms picked us to be in their lives, and, you know, and that they're all part of our stories. And the kids all have unique stories. It is their birth story. It is their, you know, their adoption story, and it's unique to each one of them. And so we let them write that story. We let them celebrate that story. They love the fact that they have a birthday and an adoption day that they celebrate every year, because none of their friends have that, right? So they get two parties, you know. and you know, it's interesting to me because I have come across other people that have been adopted, and when they hear about open adoption, they will almost invariably tear up and say, I wish I had had that when I was growing up. To me, that is the self-affirmation of, this is why. Because, you know, all the people that have not had this yearn to have what our kids are getting. Yeah. And so I think that's just such a positive thing that, you know, we get to be a part of. And I'm just excited to be able to share it.
And I would say to anyone apprehensive about it, that it is worth the risk. Everything in life is a risk, and this is definitely worth the risk.
I mean, you guys are just so remarkable. And I really mean that from the bottom of my heart, because we see a lot, and I think that people are missing out on really great opportunities because of fear. And I really appreciate specifically you, Lara, for talking about how you initially were very scared. And this was a lot of overwhelming things to deal with, of what will life look like? And will my child be my child if I choose this path? So I really appreciate you talking about that, because it means even more hearing what you guys just said of what open adoption can look like and why you appreciate it.
And I also feel like, we both feel like, that we can't love our child and not love where they came from.
Absolutely. Well, and I think the characters, the who your children are is a pure reflection on the love and support and openness you have given your children. And the fact that they are so engaged in their story and their history and their heritage shows, because you guys have given them that. Whether or not the birth parents participated or not at different points in their life, it still shines through because of how you have taught your children about their story. And that's what we're trying to get people to see and do. It's not just about what the birth parents do. It's about what you do and what you can offer your child in talking about their story. And I truly want to thank you guys. I read your letters. I mean, Lara, you have such an unbelievable heart. I can immediately, when I open your letters and I'm reading them, I can see just all of the emotions being put in there, and your willingness, even after 5, 6, 7, 9 years, to continue that relationship shows how much you love your children and the life that you want for them. And I really want to say thank you. I'm hopeful that our audience can hear your story and your journey with open adoption and realize that they can have the same. They can do the same. They just have to be willing to jump in.
Take the risk.
Yeah.
Take the risk.
So,
It's worth it.
absolutely. Well, thank you very much again. We're hopeful that our community can hear your story and learn from it, and beautiful open adoptions are on the horizon. So thanks, guys, and tune in next week.